Hi guys, just waiting to see if this is being picked up by YouTube, so just bear with me a minute, because it can be a bit of a delay from one to the other, but it does look as if YouTube has started to record and broadcast it. This is being picked up by YouTube, so just bear with me a minute. And somebody has got that playing in the background. Right, that's all stopped. So bear with me, I will just get the rest of the creative photography team on stream. So as it says, I'm Kev, if you haven't met us before, and we've also got Steve and Dimitri.
Evening all.
Hi. Hello.
Probably nobody going to be watching this today, because like I said, this is mainly just a trial of using the StreamYard software, as you can see from the logo in the top of the screen. So we're just going to see how it goes with us having a little bit of a chat about what we're doing, the way that we'll be opening our studio when some of the studios are opening, if we are still shooting, and what's going on. So let's first start. Dimitri was saying that you are actually going to be having a shoot soon.
Yeah, so I've got an outdoor shoot planned for not this weekend, weekend after. Probably doing some of my aerobic, dance, ballet type, yoga-y stuff. Obviously weather dependent, but yeah, that's the plan. So yeah.
Yeah, I was saying though that I'm supposed to be shielding, and while it is perhaps feasible to have one person in the studio and shoot with them and try and maintain social distancing, I travel by public transport, and I'm not too keen at the moment on making that journey by train or bus over to Manchester to use the studio. I assume it's going to be, I know you don't use public transport, Steve, but you're shielding as well, aren't you?
It's a bit half and half. I mean, if it's a big production, we tend to come in a car, and it's normally just filled with big dresses and stuff like that. But if it's just me doing a plain old shoot, I'll get the tram, and that's normally quite good. But yeah, shielding, there's just no possibility of doing anything like that at the moment. It's just not worth taking the risk.
No. Have you managed to get out of the house much recently at all, Steve?
Twice. So
Yeah.
went briefly to see my son. Stayed in his garden on a rainy day.
Oh, nice.
And stayed there for an hour. It was nice to see him. And then last Friday went up to Tatton.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And walked around the park at Tatton, which was really enjoyable. It was nice to stretch the legs.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I've not really stretched legs now for, well, really since September, because when my Achilles went, if you remember.
Oh yeah,
last year.
Yeah.
So it's the first time I've walked more than a couple of 100 yards, I tell you.
You know, been walking around the garden with your walking stick and things.
I have been religiously sticking to my my exercises, but not walking around the garden. It's all been sort of quite sedentary stuff. But when I was in sunny Tatton, do you know when you walk along and you see a picture and you just think, well, hang on, I've got to take that. And I had my little Olympus camera with me, mirrorless.
Oh yeah.
And thankfully I'd stuck the zoom lens on, so whapped it right up and saw these two deer in the background. So it was, I'm just sharing that at the moment. I don't know.
Yep, I'll just bring that to the stream.
And they were actually reasonably quite well lit. It was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I just thought, do you know what, that would look lovely as a silhouette. And they weren't staying still, so I just quickly whacked it, all the manual controls a bit, and whacked it down. Because I got live view, I could see what I was getting, and clicked that. And yeah, I've actually cropped in quite tightly, even on my 300mm effective sort of view of it to get this picture. But yeah, it was just, you know, when you're out and you just think, God, that I've got to take a picture of that. And thankfully, I did have my camera, even though it was a rainy day, in my pocket. Hello, what have we got going on there?
That's just bringing a message in from the chat from YouTube onto the channel.
It seems that it's a bit. The messages are kind of delayed by, I don't know, 30 seconds to a minute.
Okay. Oh no, because that's just when I saw it and clicked on it.
No, I was watching it come up in the live comments from when I actually posted it as well.
Yeah, but that's always going to be the case with live streaming.
Yeah.
But what appears in YouTube is anything from 30 seconds to about 2-minute delay from when we say or do anything to it actually being broadcast by YouTube. It's odd as well. I've noticed that when I've been watching a live stream here downstairs on the TV, and I can hear that one of the other people in the house watching the same live stream upstairs on a computer, there can be about a 20-second or 30-second disparity between two broadcasts of the same live stream in the same house. Yeah. So it is a bit. It can be a bit tricky sometimes to see what's watching. Yeah,
it's buffered. It depends on the size of the buffer and how quickly that buffer gets full.
Right.
Yeah. So even if you're listening to, let's say, Alexa or whatever else with your live streaming music, you can have the same between two different rooms.
I think you've now ignited all of our Alexas.
No, mate, ignoring me.
Don't go on about Alexa. Dimitri, what was I like when you put that into the studio? I just couldn't. I couldn't get the hang of it. Anyway,
what happened into the 20th century, Steve? At some point.
Well, what happened was my brother went and bought us for last Christmas one of these Google, Hey Google ones, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I'm busy now. I've just got used to Alexa in the studio. I wouldn't say used to, but just kind of getting into the idea. And now all of a sudden I'm having to say, Hey Google, for the other one. So I think it was the last shoot before we all closed down, sometime sort of February time. Went into the studio, and it was a long shoot because I was doing Alex for the Hollywood look.
Oh yeah.
And I also shot Alex and Roxanne's daughter, Kinsey, for an assignment that I was doing for university. So that was all like very sort of, period dresses and all this type of stuff. So it was quite a long day. So Wendy was in there, and obviously Kinsey, Alex, Roxanne, and they're having all the hair done, the makeup done. And I walked in, and it was like, you open the door, Alexa, all lights on, bing, as if by magic. And it was like they're all impressed as they all walk in. So we're all walking out, and it was a case of I just go as if very nonchalant at the end of the day. Hey Google, all lights out. Nothing. All the lights just stayed on. Shit, what's going on here? And I couldn't. I'm going, Google, all lights out. No. Hey Google, all lights out. Like, no, it was doing absolutely nothing, not having any of it. And then I realized it was a different one, but I couldn't remember for the life of me the name Alexa. So I'm going, Alexis, all lights out. No, not having it. And it was crazy. We all had a long day of shooting. Right? We all wanted to go, and I couldn't get the study lights to turn off.
Oh dear.
That explains why I found it turned off at the.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because what I did was I went onto my phone and I had to Google what the name of the voice was. So it came out and said Alexa. So hey Alexa, yeah. So I was trying Siri. I tried Siri. I tried all sorts. Yeah.
Every time you say that, somebody goes beep. I don't know whose it is.
Well, mine's quite annoying because it's hidden behind my monitor. So it doesn't always pick up my voice. So I sometimes end up shouting at it.
So if I go,
that's mine. Just
Alexa, all lights on.
No, because I've got nothing controlled by Alexa in this room. But that's mine, just fair, the display one, which is the show. So it works as a clock mainly in the room, when I'm using it as a bedroom, basically. Well, but yeah, it's handy in the studio. Seems we've got a few spare Alexas laying around.
Yeah. Yeah, if the Wi-Fi works, it's fine.
Yeah. Are you planning to go back into the studio anytime soon, Dimitri? Because you're the healthy one of the three of us.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I planned the location shoot just because it was convenient. She's over in the other side of the Pennines, so it was an excuse to go and get out and about. If the weather's crap, might be that we go into the studio now that we're allowed back in, and it'll just be one-on-one. So yeah, maybe. But yeah, I don't think I'll be doing too much, and I'll be considering the type of shoots that I do.
Yeah. And of course, we can't have the big things like Steve was talking about with several people in the studio, and we can't do several photographers in the studio because we just isn't enough space for us all to be separated, or
and makeup artists and styling and that sort of things kind of on hold. And I think even just doing a studio day with one-on-one's probably going to be a challenge.
Okay, but we'll get back there eventually. But doesn't sound like we'll be going in there any time quite yet. So that's a bit of a shame.
I think it'd be interesting to see what everybody else does.
Yeah, well, I do notice that there's a few, even before 15th, there was a few places which are already having group events taking place, which I suppose if you've got lots of space is possible, but shouldn't have been doing it before 15th of June.
Well, even then, even with lots of space, I, for work, have that consideration and still have reservations. So yeah, it's not just the space; it's everything else as well. It's the number of people, what they're going to come into contact with, what they're going to be touching, using, all of that sort of stuff. So I think for me, group shoot outside is probably okay. I think a group shoot inside, probably not.
No, not for a while. I mean, I should say for the likes of yourself, Dimitri, one-on-one was probably fine because it's not like, I mean, I know Andy Park said he's open again and he's kind of taking bookings one after the other. I mean, what you've got to do is you've got to wipe down the whole studio. That's impossible. You can't wipe down the whole studio. You've no idea what they've touched.
Well,
if you leave it for 2 days, then apparently it disappears.
No, that's
and we don't shoot that often. Whereas Andy's talking about having on the same day one shoot after another, leaving an hour in between to clean it down.
I think it's manageable to a degree if you limit what people touch. So things like lights, only the studio owner, manager, whatever, touches the lights. Only the models in the model area.
Nobody touches the models.
Yeah.
Apart from themselves.
Even things like doors and stuff, you can, there is things that you can practically put in place to be able to do it. So I think it's possible. It's just a lot of work.
Yeah. I think an hour is probably pushing it to do that complete clean between visits as well, actually. It's possible.
It depends what you need to clean. Like I say, if you restrict what people touch, and you use disposable cups and all of these things, it is manageable. And if you use the right products, even if you're missing bits, the fact is it lingers and you're overlapping the cleaning as such. So I think, as I say, it's possible, but it's just effort.
Effort, time, and cost.
And if you're, if it's your only source of income as a studio owner, then you can understand why you would want to do it. But for a hobbyist studio, it doesn't necessarily make so much sense.
No, it definitely is a challenge at the moment. That's for sure. Like I said, though, I do see that quite a few studios are opening up. Some doing just one photographer, one model. Some opening up for groups. And like I said, it all depends on the circumstances. But yeah, I think we'll just have to keep it play by ear again, won't we, and just see how the rest of the year goes on. It's not ideal.
Well, I mean, the studio, the building itself's not open yet anyway, so...
No, not officially. I mean, there are people using it like Gary, but Gary uses it for his office for his normal job anyway.
Yeah, Gary won't be opening the studio for a while, I don't think.
Yeah, I think he's quite sensible about that. I mean, I didn't. I almost wanted to comment when Andy went and said, "Oh, I'm opening the studio back open for business. Everyone get booking." And I almost wanted to say, are you sure? But it's Facebook. You got to be careful sometimes what you say, haven't you?
Well, you're now saying it on YouTube.
Well, there you go.
At the end of the day,
it's at the end of the day, so different studios are in different circumstances, and I think the important thing to do is that they've got to put a plan in place about how what they're doing, and then anybody which wants to use that space can look at that plan and decide whether they think that is a suitable precautions and they feel safe in that working environment. And that's what it boils down to, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's management of risk.
Have either of you been to Andy's place? New place?
No, in a way.
It's a sort of place. It's nice and wide open. Okay,
Yeah.
and it's loads and loads of space in it. Gorgeous shooting height on it. I mean, I was really jealous of the shooting height, and he's done a lot to sort of really, sort of slim it and make it nice and bright walls and all that sort of stuff. He's done a cracking job, and you think in that sort of space it's doable. But
yeah, exactly.
Plus, it's a case of with ours, you've actually got to travel through the mill to get to the studio, and it's what people touch on the way as well.
Yeah, and then you've got to walk through the sort of it's probably the main shooting area to get to the posing area, to get to the changing rooms. If you want to go out to the bathroom, you've got to go back down the corridor again. And it's the same with different places have different requirements of what they need to do to make them usable.
I don't know if anyone's asked the mill about your communal areas, like who's cleaning down the communal areas. Oh, didn't they say they were cleaning them down on an hourly basis?
Did they?
Well, I don't know if it's hourly, but I know for the requirements for us, things need to be cleaned twice a day. And so ultimately, you look at it and things like public transport and everything else, if you use the right cleaning medium and topic stuff like that, it actually gives you a level of protection for a period of time. So so once they've cleaned it, even if somebody touches it, the virus is killed because the chemicals linger for so long. So as long as you're overlapping your periods, you've got that protection in place.
I don't know if it's because I'm in the shielding category, whether I'm just being a bit overprotective. But
I don't think
everyone's got to make their own mind up.
I did think I was being quite protective myself when I started working from home. I still caught the virus, and
How did that happen?
Well,
That's crazy.
exactly. Yeah, well, I think basically I probably caught it when I was in the chemist, but picking up my prescriptions. But that's just one of those things.
The irony's not lost on me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but so I was doing what I could do, and but I still ended up catching a virus, and I still ended up in ICU and almost dying. So that's me taking what I thought was quite stringent protections, and safeguards.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a incubation period, a transfer period, etc. So it's quite difficult to say exactly what day you caught it. So
well, exactly. Yeah, so basically, looking at the incubation period, from that time, the only times I'd actually left the house during that week was to go to the chemist. So so I walked from my house to the chemist and back. Nobody in my house has had the virus, and that's the only time in that week that I actually left the house. So
on the plus side, the precautions you were taking prevented the others.
Well, it did. That's the thing. The precautions we're taking, both going out and actually inside the house when we're back inside the house, meant that the other two people in the house, which are both having to shield because they're much worse immune systems than I've got, didn't catch what I'd got, and I didn't pass it on to him. So that was a blessing. I see, Steve's. Are you preparing to share another picture with us?
Yes, yeah. We were talking about different topics and maybe recording some OBS video, and if you record it, then you're sharing it and seeing if people would be interested. And this was an image I took of. Do you remember Jessica Benson?
Yes.
Any of you ever worked with her?
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah.
Lovely girl. Yeah. Well, we had this idea, or I had this idea of wanting to do a really big sort of flamboyant dress. I think this was one of the first images that got me into the big dress shoots. But there's no way I could afford to buy anything or collaborate or anything like that with anybody like that. And this was like 6 years ago, and I think I made the mistake of sketching this sort of thing on a piece of paper, just drawing it up and saying anybody interested in collaborating with me on this, and sticking it on Purple Port. And a few people came back, and Jessica was one of them. And she's got she was drama trained, wasn't she? I believe. And I thought, Joe, for the sort of the look and the pose and all that lot, somebody who had that sort of a drama sort of nature would be ideal. And a number of people have asked me over the years. This is 6 years old now. This picture. Asked me over the years, like, where did you get the dress? What did you do? And it's like, well, it was at the time I was sort of making the move from shooting film to shooting digital. And one of the benefits I found predominantly of shooting digital, it really just opened that whole world up of Photoshop. And I never really used Photoshop much before doing this image. And I thought, I've got to give myself a bit of a baptism by fire. And Dimitri, before you go mad, this did actually take me 2 weeks to edit. Right?
All right.
And what it actually is my son holding up a piece of red cloth that's on a roll that we've got from where was it? One of those big fabric warehouses. And I had the camera on a tripod, and I took many images of it being held at different places, and then pieced that all together in Photoshop and made the dress, and then dodged and burnt it and warped it and all that type of stuff. And I just wondered if it'd be sort of interesting to anybody if they went and saw some of the images that actually went into this, and then how I actually created it, and whether they'd be interested in see how the big red dress was actually brought into life.
As long as the OBS video you record for it isn't a week long as well.
Yeah. It's 2 weeks, mate. 2 weeks. Yeah. I wish it was only a week. No, I've seen people do it before. Where these are some of the technical difficulties I'm having. Do you know, like when people they zoom into a part of a picture and stuff like this.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've seen them do it, but it's it's how they do it. So I'm going to have to figure a few more things out technically before I'm able to actually do something of that ilk.
Okay, but I'll be looking forward to that. That should be really good.
Right, I'll stop that sharing. There you go. All right. Back to the three of me goes. Yeah.
No, actually, I talking about Photoshop and things. I didn't have a quick word off screen with Steve actually, but of course, Adobe have updated their software recently. Now I've updated my Lightroom Classic on my computer, and I've updated Photoshop. I've been into Lightroom, but I've not been into Photoshop yet. I think, Dimitri, were you saying that there's a bug or something that's been reported?
Email came in from so Greg Benz, photography of some mailing list I signed up for ages ago, and it's just come in on my blog. There's a bug. Okay, it affects Macs.
Right.
Sorry, I'm just reading it in parallel. Causes black and white adjustment layers to fail to update unless you delete a black and white layer and undo.
Wow.
Oh, nice. Bit strange.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll send it in the group chat. There's a
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, so I don't know. I haven't actually looked yet to see what's actually changed in Photoshop. But in Lightroom Classic, the main thing they're listing out as having been updated in this new release is performance improvements, user interface improvements. They've added local hue adjustments to the brush tool now, to the adjustment brush. Where have you posted that to, Dimitri? Sorry.
the group chat, Facebook group chat.
Ah, right. Okay. I just saw something pop up on the screen. I thought you were going to post it onto this YouTube video.
I can do.
No, it's all right. Yeah, if you can, then just post it in here.
Yeah, I'll post it in the comments.
Oops. There's what I was trying to click on. It was that. Right. So yeah. So the local hue adjustments for the adjustment control and something called ISO adaptive presets, which is a bit of a weird one. So basically, the way I understand it is you can take some pictures with your camera of the same thing at different ISO. You can then adjust the noise for how much compensation it needs to do for a high ISO picture. And then if it sees an image coming in from that camera at that ISO, then it applies that level of noise adjustment. I don't know when or if I would ever use something like that. I don't tend to take a lot of high ISO pictures.
Be useful for gigs and stuff like that.
Gigs, weddings, I can understand it, you know. Then looking at the other things, center crop overlay. So when you crop, you can have it so that there's a 2x2 grid, so it shows you where the center point is as you're cropping.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that one either. I tend to have the thirds grid showing. So
I tend to cycle through them, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I'll get it somewhere roundabout and then cycle through the diagonals. The fancy named squirrel. Steve, what's it called?
Is that a Fibonacci?
Yeah,
it is.
One.
Yeah. Or the golden ratio. I don't know which one you're talking about.
Another Fibonacci.
Yeah. So it's just another grid overlay by cropping by the look of it. New default presets. Apply different default settings using the new defaults preset. Support for new cameras and lenses, but you get that all the time. And other enhancements. So it's just probably lots of little things. Performance improvements, you know, they always say they're going to make it faster. I never usually notice much improvement on newer versions.
And to be honest, I've never found it that slow or bad. Only seems to be Rick that has an issue with the speed.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't have a lot of issues with it. But then we're both using Fuji cameras now. File sizes aren't ginormous, are they? Whereas I guess some of these people which are using 50 megapixel Sony cameras, and they're getting smart previews of everything when they, you know, as well. Maybe things are a bit slower on that, especially with older machines and things.
Well, it's a 50 meg file for the images on my camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my camera's only 20 some odd megapixels, not 50 megapixels.
No, mine's not 50 megapixels, but it's a 50 meg file. So
I know, I'm talking about the size of a sensor, because obviously the size of the sensor gives you fast. Then there's some improvements with the user interface. So it's, you know, for syncing with the cloud. There's the tone curves one was quite interesting. So when you go into curves now, it shows, and you go into the RGB.
Yeah,
it shows you sort of the colors on either side of a curve. So you know where when you're dragging a curve, you're taking it more from, say, you know, the blues to magenta, or, you know, what have you.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's some nice, interesting little things. So it's I'm just flicking through them all. New user interface selecting colors in the color panel. You know, the adjustment brush is interesting though, because now before you couldn't really fine tune colors on the adjustment brush.
Right.
Whereas in this latest release, you can actually now fine tune. So if I just wait a second, let me.
But you're still using an old version, Steve. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm still using standalone. I most of the stuff you've mentioned, it's difficult to exactly envisage it. Oh, I'll be able to see it now, but it just seems like it sort of, as it said, user interface stuff. It's nice to have, but
It doesn't matter much.
It doesn't sound like it's changing the engine.
No. Whereas, right, but this is quite interesting. So now with this, you've got a few adjustments you can make as well now. So you can basically,
Right.
make, and there's fine adjustments if you just want to tweak things slightly. Obviously, I'm just doing this with making the right mess of things, but you get the idea. So you've basically got more control over color now with the adjustment brush. I don't really want to do that. Let's reset everything. It might be faster. It might be a tidier interface. Well, I've not really played around with it yet, so I've not noticed a significant difference to what we had before. So things don't look particularly faster to me, and they don't look particularly different to me either. I do see though that I've got this sync button in the top, which is disappearing under the StreamYard's logo. I don't use the cloud services at all for Adobe, so syncing to me doesn't really do much. So
when you were talking performance, I mean, with my 645, they are 50 megabytes plus each of the files. And they all go into Lightroom, and you know what it's like on a shoot. You can take a couple of 100 pictures, and I've never had any problem with it. I've always found Lightroom performance to be really good, and this is the standalone version. Yeah.
Though, as I mentioned before, I did hear though that new camera support was being discontinued from the standalone version. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know.
I'm not buying any new cameras.
I'm sure you will have to one day.
Yeah, you're right. But at the moment, I'm getting away with it.
Yeah, but no, so nothing overly different about it. It's much of a muchness. What I need to do though is have a play around with it and also see what differences we've got now in Photoshop, because I haven't really looked at Photoshop yet. I tend to do most of my editing actually in Lightroom and just go into Photoshop for usually deciding on my color palette and doing things like removing things which shouldn't be there or fixing curves which are sticking out a bit and stuff like that.
I think looking at the Photoshop CC, I mean, one of the things which I think I would use if I was CC would be the you can actually get the library feature within Photoshop, and like things like download the brushes and stuff like that.
Well, you're talking about the library feature, because I use the libraries all the time, because I put together a color scheme and then I save that to the library, so then I can apply it to pictures going forward. So the library I do use with most of my pictures, to be honest, because like I said, I've spent quite a long time making various different colors profiles, and I don't want to start over from scratch again each time. So
do you want to bring it up and just let's have a look at it while we're on?
Okay, I haven't got Photoshop up and running at the moment, but let's just, for the sake of, let's not bring that picture up because that one is not even in focus. All right, so let's edit that in Photoshop.
That's lovely, by the way. Where was that taken, Kevin?
It was taken in Gorzenau. It's in the top left. It's the name of the file.
Oh, was this the Poland one you went to?
It was a few years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounded very interesting, that.
Yeah, this are pictures which did not make the cut for editing. Right, so let's drag that over to this monitor. Duplicate the layer. Go. Oops. I did dialog boxes on my other monitor. That's why I couldn't see it. All right. Open up libraries. Obviously, I'll be doing a
Now,
lot
are you
more
able
editing.
to zoom in on this now? Shall
Oh,
you
well,
see
zoom in on the
people
image.
on no on the libraries? So where you got the library drop-down menu? Because you see some people on their videos, what they do is they actually zoom in.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
That's a bit of software, that is, isn't it?
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, that people have for doing. It's like a magnifier.
Yeah.
For people which do sort of online training and things.
Right.
No.
You
So
use
anyway, sorry.
the Adobe products to do it. Just record it and then zoom in the post production. Or are you thinking in real time?
I thought it was real time. I was speaking about, Dimitri, but
you can get screen software to do that. Right. So if I hold down the Alt key while I click on one of my items in my library and drive it to the top of the stack, then basically it gives my color tint. Can you see the difference in the color tint? Probably not on these monitors.
So what you actually stored in the library there was that?
So basically, I've got basic various different curves. Oops, sorry, just got messages popping up.
The color fills.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Let's see if I've got one which is a bit more. Well, that's just going to make everything blue, but I can't drag that across. Blue and teal, which is one of the ones I was using recently, I think. All right.
Oh, that's good. That, I mean, that's effectively creating your own, creating your own presets in Lightroom, but
Yeah,
you've got that availability in Photoshop. That's good.
Yeah, so I've created these basic color lookups, gradient maps, color balancing, and all the curves. I save that, then I basically I drag that out onto the library, and then it's available on the library if I want to apply that to other pictures in going forward. So this is one I put together the other week, but it might be something I want to apply to these pictures. But you can do it for anything. You can have anything prepared and stored in your libraries, and then just bring them across and edit them as you want. But the original group is still sitting in your library. So what I tend to do is have a folder with lots of things inside it. Drag that in, fiddle around with it actually on the image just tweak it to that particular image. But the original without the tweaks is all sitting in my library to apply it to another picture going forward. But does that sort of make sense?
It does, and I can certainly see it being extremely useful.
Yeah.
I mean, it certainly is a feature which I wish CS6 had got, but there you are.
You're using a standalone.
I am, yeah.
Yeah, I think I've got quite a lot. I've introduced noise and all sorts of things on this particular one. So
I think for me, there's probably an element of principle as well. I just bought Photoshop, like months before they went onto the cloud.
All right, yeah.
And it wasn't cheap, and you kind of, they say, okay, the first email you get from them is, we'd welcome you to come and pay us so much a month. And it's like, I just paid you this.
Yeah, no, I understand. I had, I think, before I went to the subscription one, I was on CS2, I think it was. So I hadn't updated and gone on to a more recent version for what was it? CS6 was it before it went to the?
Yes, that was the latest CS6.
So basically, I was already 4 versions behind. So to me, it made more sense to then saying, okay, my version is getting rather long in the tooth now. It might make sense to actually switch. Lightroom though, I'm still not sure about. I use Lightroom mostly for most of what I'm doing. I'm still not 100% sold on whether I should keep using Lightroom or not. It's great for
What do you use it for?
Well, I do most of my editing in Lightroom. So, I use it for everything, plopping, fixing all the spots and tidying things up, straightening lines. Yeah, I know you can do all exactly the same things in ACR or in Photoshop itself. But I was just watching today videos using Capture One. Capture One is better for Fuji files. There's no doubt about it. But it does look like quite a high learning curve to use it. And I'd have to use the pro version, not the free version, which I was looking into as well.
Yeah.
Why
so
is
when I mentioned I had this one-to-one session with a Fuji guy.
Yeah.
We touched on it because obviously it started with this remote shooting and being able to control the camera with Lightroom and having to pay the $80 for the plugin for the pro version. So we ended up talking about it, and basically Fuji have worked with Capture One to integrate it properly. So you've got a lot better integration and being able to remote control, and also it's free essentially. Although you do need to subscribe to the Capture One, which actually I think it works out about the same price as Photoshop at £10 a month if you're a Fuji owner.
Wow,
Right.
that's good.
I think Sony and one or two of the others are the same. So if you're one of these brand cameras that's worked with Capture One, you get a discount on the monthly cost.
So I know they do a specific version for Fuji cameras. Do they do specific versions then for people with Sony cameras as well and other makes?
I'm not sure it's a specific version or it's the same version. In fact, it must be the same version because I only downloaded one version. But there is different subscription plans.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I think the default's £30 a month, maybe. But for certainly Fuji, Sony, and some others.
Yeah. It's worth considering, I guess. Is there any other software? What other software do you use, Steve? Do you just use Photoshop, and is it mostly stuff in Photoshop which you work on?
Mainly Photoshop. I also use Coral Painter.
Yes.
And I find that useful. I mean, the range of brushes you've got available in Coral Painter is really good. I normally just go in there to sort of like touch backgrounds or add some sort of special effects type stuff, which is really cool. And a number of my images are trying to get to be more painterly anyway. So I find it useful for that. But those are, it's probably ACR, Photoshop, and Coral Painter that I use the most.
Yeah. I must admit, I do have Painter on my computer, but I haven't actually been using it for quite a while, I think it was.
I'll tell you what I do like as well is the suite of software from Nick, the Silver Effects.
Yes. So have you got the new one from now they're part of DxO?
No,
have you got the old version?
I bought it before. Oh, I've had it a good while. I bought it before it became free.
Yes, same here.
Yeah, and I've not, now that they're charging for it again, I've not updated it. So I'm still happy with that one from way back when. Yeah,
no, it was really good. No, that's something else I have considered whether it's worth. I haven't used. Once again, it's something which I haven't used for a while. But I did consider whether it's worth having a look and seeing what DxO has done with the program.
That black and white is amazing. I find in the Silver
Effects. Yeah. Well, Dimitri, you do much editing yet?
No.
You must be on top of your backlog now, shouldn't you, Dimitri? Surely.
No. Some of you forget that some of us have been working.
Yeah,
So,
that's true. Yeah.
Nothing's really changed for me other than I can't go to the pub.
Well, that must have released lots of editing time for you.
But no. Yeah, no, I haven't actually done a bit. I've started looking at some video stuff and trying to pull some bits and pieces together for that. Started to write some or prepare some stuff, which is how I ended up looking at the tethering stuff.
What are you using for video editing?
Currently Adobe. So I've got the Adobe suite. So
Premiere.
They were doing an offer for, was it 30 quid a month?
All right.
So I traded up to get the full Adobe suite.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I've got Premiere. I've got.
What do you think of Audition?
Okay. So I've used
it's lovely.
Yeah.
Audition is it's sweet. It really is. The Audition is the sound editing.
I've never used that. Yeah.
Oh, it's so amazing. I mean, even little features like when you're doing a video, if you just do like 20-30 seconds of background noise of the room, because you always get some background noise. So all you got to do is you just select that segment of the audio, you click that and select it as, this is my background noise effectively, and then it does like noise cancelling and then takes it off the rest of your audio.
Well, the funny thing is, I'm using noise cancelling to remove the noise from my audio live now here. Wow. Basically, I've got a program running called RTX Voice, which is pretty good at taking out a lot of the non-voice noises in my room, hopefully, because my room is not quiet. My computer is here. Right. It is very, very, very loud. Okay. It has a lot of fans in it, and those fans are not silent fans. So, so I'm having to use some noise cancelling software so you can actually hear my voice over the sound of my computer.
Well, it's working.
But it's pretty good. It's not supposed to work on my computer because it's from NVIDIA for their RTX graphic cards for gamers, for streamers, I believe. I haven't got an RTX graphic card. I've got a GTX graphic card, so I've had to go and sort of hack it a bit to make it work. But it seems to be quite effective. So I've been quite pleased with it. But I need that because otherwise, I wouldn't be able to live stream from this room because it'd just be too noisy. So it's the only option I got. What I can hear at the moment is crunch, crunch, crunch of the sweet.
Yeah, you should have got back, Kevin. You should have got a Mac. That would have sorted out the problems.
Yes. No, I have got a MacBook Air, and that's what I tend to use if we're doing stuff in the studio. But though it is actually at home at the moment because I bought it home just before the lockdown. But I can't. I do most of my heavy editing here on the PC. It's a bit of a beast. It's a few years old now, but it's still a bit of a beast, which is why it needs all those fans. So I think next time I have a machine built, it'll have to be one of these water-cooled things or something to try and make it a bit quieter. But I thought you were going to say something, man.
No, it was, but no. I mean, it depends what power you need from it. Ultimately, I've got my desktop and I've got my NAS drive, but neither of them, I think, really make too much noise that you can't filter them out.
Well, I said I know, but I can't remember what it's got in there now. But I know that when I originally spec'd it out, they said that I needed a much larger power supply than what I'd spec'd for. So,
my power supply is fine. I think it's more your CPU fan that makes most of the noise.
Yeah, no, but like I said, it's running 7 fans in there, something like that.
It's probably overkill.
It's not what, sorry?
Probably totally overkill.
It probably is. But they all come on sometimes.
If you've got, it depends how you set your motherboard up. If you've got monitoring on it, you should be able to see how warm it is inside the case.
Well, this is why I'm not a PC person, which is why I got somebody to build it for me. Oh dear. Oh well. Have we got anything else to discuss tonight? We've been on for 50 minutes now, so we'll try and wrap up shortly. So we can have one more of these chats in the future and get something a bit more organised and advertised in advance and a bit more plan of what we're going to talk about.
Sounds good.
I think we'll check back the replay, but it seems to have all worked all right. So as long as this doesn't get banned and removed from YouTube, like my last video, no stream, hopefully this will be okay. But, anything else to say?
No, all good.
Okay. Okay, so it's good night for me.
And good night from me. And
Right,
good night from him. Thanks
See
for
you
organising,
soon.
Kevin.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Stay safe. Bye.